Today on Treasure Hunting America, we'll visit with Bob Howard, who quit his day job after finding a 2-pound gold nugget.
I went into work and I just showed this to my boss and I said, I'm gone. And he said, no, you're not one we want to let go. And too bad, that's it, I'm out of here.
Then we'll talk with Mike Howard, who's been digging in the ground before he could walk.
Metal detecting, treasure hunting is something that's in your blood, and I think you're born with it. My parents, they tell me that when I was crawling, before I was walking, I'd come home with handfuls of rocks.
All coming up on Treasure Hunting America. Hello and welcome to another episode of Treasure Hunting America. I'm your host, Mark Hendricks. For the next half hour, we'll share some amazing stories of everyday treasure hunters across the country, discovering vast antiquities and caches of yesteryear. Our first story takes us to the Gold Hills of California. It's here that Bob Howard found several large nuggets and decided once and for all to give up his day job.
Far back as I can remember, my father got me into going into the ghost towns and talking to me about the history and just seeing the old things and telling me all the things I could find. And then when I did start searching, I was finding. And it was just a lot of interest in the Old West, and it was very romantic. You know, I really liked that. It was really very attractive to me.
This love for treasure hunting kept up with Bob into adulthood. He often went gold prospecting on the weekend and worked during the week in Silicon Valley. But for Bob, this wasn't the lifestyle he wanted to live.
I was working for Hewlett & Packard over in Sunnyvale and Palo Alto area. It wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. I like the outdoors, and I'm not really an electronics buff. I really like getting out and exploring, and the prospecting, the treasure hunting really attracted to me. And one weekend I went out and I found a 2-pound nugget. We were up by Downeyville and I was dredging. And I went down with my 6-inch dredge, and it just showed up there. It wouldn't even go at the nozzle. And when I saw it, I couldn't believe what I saw. It totally shocked me. And I almost swallowed my regulator when I discovered it. You know, it was just unbelievable. The thrill of finding it was worth more than it was in value itself. It's just that I felt I'd accomplished my goal, like what I wanted to do. At the time, the company I was working for offered early retirement, and I went into work and I just showed this to my boss and I said, I'm gone. And he said, no, you're not one we want to let go. And too bad, that's it, I'm out of here. After that, it's just been one great find after another. I don't regret this one bit. It's not only been very profitable for me, it has been absolutely a lifesaver for me. It's a lot of stress relief, and it's changed my life completely. Yeah, this is a very good place to look. I found a lot of gold out of here. Ooh. There's another good signal. You know, wherever I find one, I always find another. I always find more in the same area. So, but this, like I say, last winter there was a big flood down this stream. So I'm sure a lot more gold is washed down. Let's see what I find in here. Ooh, I got it first time. Yep, that's it. Another one right there. Good, nice piece. There's still a lot of gold being found. In fact, we're finding more today than they ever did. And the equipment's gotten much better. Metal detectors, and the way they are now, we're not stuck to the water's edge. We can explore more. I can find gold inside of rocks. You don't see any gold on the outside of the rock at all. Or if you do, just barely a speck of gold. I found quite a bit like that. And I think it's just gold that they'd missed. They were using their eyes, and I think the older the mine, the technology wasn't as good, and they were pulling out a lot of gold. So the stuff that we consider big now, they consider small. There is more gold in the ground than they have ever taken out. These are several gold pieces that I found in the local area. These are the pieces that I find around the mines, this piece here. And you can see it's got a lot more crystalline structure. It's a lot more of a specimen kind of piece. This is the kind of pieces I find around the streams. These are more hammered. They've been crushed and ground down by the rocks and moving gravel and the water action. This is more of a specimen kind of a piece. This, for some reason, just seems to attract me more because this is the way nature actually created it. This is the way it came out of the ground.
When we return, Bob Howard will share about dredging for gold and how he researches old mining areas for nuggets.
Some of my favorite places to search are around old mines. I like to go into the ore dumps. I have found larger pieces of gold there and more specimen grade pieces of gold. Whenever you talk to anybody about prospecting, the first thing that comes to their mind are rivers and streams. There's not so many people away from that. I'd like to get away from everybody. I like to be off by myself. And I find that around these mining sites, there's nobody. Sometimes I go into historical museums and I find these old maps and I'll see a mine there and I'll look at it on a modern day map and it doesn't exist. I want to go check those out because I don't think anybody else has been out there. I've flown around with several pilots and I take my GPS with me and I have them fly around through the valleys and looking for the old mines if we can spot them. I want them to fly low and slow if they will. And when I spot a mine and it looks interesting, I save the waypoint on my GPS and I hike back out there and explore and check those out. This is the side of an old mine. There's actually a mine shaft right back there in the bushes. This is definitely what I look for. You can see all the quartz in the ground around here and the quartz on the hill there behind me. No, that's a piece of iron, probably a piece of old mining garbage, trash. But yeah, this is definitely a good spot. No. Not everything is a good target, knowing what to pick up and what not to. No, more trash. Oh, that's iron there. Oh, I got a good signal there. That's definitely non-ferrous. Yeah, good strong signal. Yep, it's in my hand. Yep, it's definitely in my hand. Nope. 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 There it is. Okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah. There's a nice piece. I don't recommend anybody to go inside of a mine. The slightest movement, anything could cause it to cave in on you. That is very dangerous to do. And most of the mines I've gone around are already collapsed. If you start chipping at the side of the mine, the whole roof may cave in on you. That's just definitely not a very good idea. And your machine's only going to go so many inches into the wall of the mine. And there's been actually more gold found in the ore dump outside than they ever did inside the mine.
Another method Bob uses to find gold is underwater dredging.
Dredging is where you use a suction hose and a pump, and it pumps water into a venturi, which creates a suction on a hose, and it vacuums up the gravel off the bottom of the river, runs it through a sluice box, puts the gravel back into the stream, and we actually remove mercury, remove lead out of the streams. We actually clean up the streams.
Popular opinion would believe that dredging is not good for the environment, but Bob feels differently about his time in the streams.
We're the only people I know that are taking mercury and lead out of the streams, which winds up in the fish and then winds up in us. We actually dig up bugs, which feed the fish. We aerate the gravel, which is good for the fish to lay eggs in next year. I would consider us environmentalists, definitely. You know, we're cleaning up the environment.
In addition to being an environmentalist, Bob has also become an amateur archaeologist.
We actually are protecting artifacts as we find them. We get them out of the ground before they're destroyed by the environment. The artifacts that we find, we donate them to the museums, and it's adding to history. These things are just falling apart. They're just wasting away into the ground, and we can get them out and get them into museums where they belong. And I notice there's a fence right over here to my right. It's obviously private property. I might work right up to, but I try to stay off of private property as much as possible. It's just not worth the trouble. And there's just as much gold off the private property as there is on. More out of the fact that they just want their privacy. Not something like they're trying to protect gold or something that might be on there.
For Bob, his profession as a treasure hunter, environmentalist, and archaeologist is fueled by his passion for adventure.
It's very addicting because you're finding what you're looking for. It's gold fever. You pick up a piece of gold and wow, I mean, it shocks you. And as you keep going and you get more and more and more, the pieces of gold are getting larger and I'm finding more of it. And it's just, like I say, very addicting. And there's a lot of adventure. I'm more addicted to the adventure than I am the profit that I'm getting from it. It's just something about it. It just really attracts me. I've pretty much done just about everything I ever wanted to do in life and seen just about everywhere I wanted to see. And this is something I intend to do the rest of my life. Absolutely, this is my life's passion.
When we return, we'll meet Mike Howard, who's found a great collection of gold nuggets and military memorabilia. Welcome back to Treasure Hunting America. Our next treasure hunter has researched and hunted California's gold and U.S. military history and come up with some great finds, including artifacts relating to General Ulysses Grant.
Metal detecting, treasure hunting is something that's in your blood, and I think you're born with it. I really do. I certainly was. I can't remember a time when I wasn't into that. And I'm a geologist, and my parents would have told that I was going to be a geologist because they tell me that when I was crawling, before I was walking, I'd come home with hands full of rocks. When I got my first metal detector, that's when the passion really grew. That's when I realized that there were things in the ground you couldn't see that were valuable. The Lake Michigan area was incredible, and I lived in a place called Lincolnshire, Illinois, which is right close to Waukegan. This was back in the mid-60s. Coinage had just gone to clad, so everything in the ground was silver. In an afternoon, you could pick up more coins than you could carry away. It was intriguing what you could find and not know was ever there. That was the primary thing that kept me going. I used to find an awful lot of money and a lot of gold jewelry too, which kind of supplemented my income in the early years. This is a handful of gold nuggets, 7 ounces to be actually 7.01 ounces, which I found last June, at a place called Gaines Creek, Alaska. Just after landing at Gaines Creek, we went out, we ate lunch and went out, and 3 hours later, I had this nugget. A couple hours after that, I had another nugget, and the next day I had a couple more nuggets. On the third day, I found that nugget, which is 3 3/4 ounces. It's a kind of a heart-shaped gold slug. There's no quartz in it whatsoever, and it's just a beauty. Near the end of the week, I found this, and it is gold in oxidized arsenopyrite, so the geologist up there told me. And they hadn't seen one of these before, this combination, gold in this parent rock. So they're now looking for that outcrop.
Through his years of experience as a treasure hunter, Mike has learned some good lessons on where to find the best targets.
I like parks and schools because you find lots of coins, just lots of coins. And in parks you can find some old coins and jewelry as well. There's plenty left behind. Even if an area's been hit hard, they didn't get everything. I like old trails, old mining trails. I like the beach too, especially an area where you might have had multiple shipwrecks. All kinds of things wash up on the beach during a storm or are uncovered by the cuts made in the sand by the storm. Gold fields, especially around here. Redding was the end of the railroad back in the old days, coming up from the south. And the people would get off the train here in Redding and they'd go to Old Shasta, which was the county seat back in the 1800s, and they'd go off into the Trinities from there and any of the gold fields right around the area here. But this is basically where the beginning was. This is probably aluminum, but I'm going to dig it anyway. Must have come out. Oh, they did. It's the ring from a pull tab. Sound good. No, that's why. Another pull tab. It's a 2 pull tab day, but you know, not every day is a winner. These could just as easily have been seeded Liberty dimes or Wheatie pennies or a gold coin. You know, the stuff's in the ground and along with a lot of junk. So you'll be digging a lot of junk. This is a military belt plate, which I found on the coast. I found it under a burnt building in an old town, and after doing research on it, found out that it came from where General Grant had camped with his troops back in the 1850s. And they stayed there for quite some time. It was an area, a staging area for the gold rush. And I would imagine that this belt plate belonged to one of Grant's troops. This is a U.S. military officer's button, which was made in somewhere between 1821 and 1854. It's still got the silver on it. I found this in the gold fields, not far from here, up in the hills, in the Trinities, near an area where the troops were sent in to protect the miners from the Indians back in the gold rush era. One of the secrets that people should know about are boulevards in any town. And that's the area between the sidewalk and the street, maintained by the city. It's usually got grass. You got to remember that even in the horse and buggy days, they parked them right there. They had curbs there. People have been getting in and out of their cars and buggies and so on those streets for 100 years. So you can imagine what's in the ground there. You want to be really careful because it's also considered part of a person's front yard. So you don't want to dig and leave holes or make a mess. But those boulevards are really a good secret. These silver coins, they don't look silver now because of the tarnish from the salt water. But I've got 2 seeded half dollars here, 1858 and 1859. Below that are 2 half dimes, and they're 1853 and 1854. They're all S coins, minted in San Francisco, and who knows what ship they were on when it lost its cargo, and these included. But it was probably coming from San Francisco.
When we return, Mike will take us hunting in the underbrush and will also show us a Celtic gold coin he found unlike any other in the world. Welcome back to Treasure Hunting America. Mike Howard not only searches the obvious sights, he sometimes gets down and dirty in his hunt for treasure.
Look where we are now. This is a park, Lake Redding Park. It's a beautiful setting. There are valuable coins and artifacts still left in this park from the 1800s and all through the 20th century. Not only do you free your mind from your everyday stresses, everything goes away. It's just you and the metal detector and the next find. A real old can lid. Probably has some lead in it, and that's why it gave off the good signal. That's very old. There's a lot of old stuff in this part of the park. Oh, well, that was some fun, huh? That's what we call woods hunting. There's a lot of artifacts sitting in here. This is the very old portion of the park. After it was just a public park, it became a car park in the 20s and 30s. So people were in here parking their cars. There are a few cement abutments mixed in through those woods. But unfortunately, it's really almost undetectable with all the berry bushes and all the brush in there. When you walk across a piece of ground, you have no idea what the history of that ground was. You can't see on the ground, for the most part, you can't see what has happened there in the past. With a metal detector, you can cross a piece of property and basically garner the history of that property. This is a little coin that I found out in the middle of a farmer's field. It was a pea field. It's the best find that I found in England. It's a handmade Celtic Iceni gold quarter stater. And it depicts a long-legged wolf with a bristled back and gaping jaws on the front and a wild boar on the back. This coin has never been seen before. It's valued at about $10,000. I donated it to the Castle Museum in Norwich. If you're really serious about metal detecting and you want to find good old artifacts and coins, is to do some research. Go to the library, go to the Historical Society, talk to the old-timers, especially old-timers from the area. They can tell you where they used to have the 4th of July celebrations, the church picnics. Areas like that could be fields today are very promising because people overlook them. The best tip for a metal detector, especially if you're just getting started in the field, is to buy a good metal detector. Don't buy a low-line metal detector and expect it to do the job of a mid-line or upper-line metal detector. You don't have to buy the best, just don't buy the cheapest. Get something that's got some bells and whistles so that it can at least eliminate iron, tell you what you're looking at in the ground, and make a reasonable guess as to whether you want to dig it or not. England seems to be the place that has the most promise for finding what I'd really like to find, and that's a buried hoard, a few hundred or a few thousand coins from any era. And every time I'm in England, I don't pass up any large signal, and I dig them all up, even though it takes hours to get to some of these things, and they're usually a plowshare or a brass riveted piece of iron from centuries ago. I've never found a hoard, and that's really, my goal is to find one.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Treasure Hunting America. Be with us next time as we explore more stories of everyday treasure hunters across the country. Until then, I'm Mark Hendricks. Happy hunting! Treasure Hunting America is sponsored by White's Electronics, manufacturers of the world's finest metal detectors. For over 50 years, White's has been building metal detectors in the USA for treasure hunters around the world. For more information, visit their website or call the number on your screen.